It's late afternoon, and after years of intensive searching, Sydney's Royal National Park finally gives up its tragic secret. Police have uncovered the bush grave of 20-year-old Matthew Leveson, missing for almost a decade. For the longest time, Mark and Faye Leveson have wanted nothing more than to find their son's body. But this discovery also brings an irrevocability they've long dreaded.
Considering that for all these years you wanted to find your son, and there he was, can you describe that emotion in that moment?
It's just like a finality. It was like, I can't describe it, it was bittersweet. I was happy that we kept our promise to him, but on the same token, it was real. It was very, very real.
Matt was found on the 31st of May this year, but only because this man, Michael Atkins, finally admitted to burying him here. For nearly 10 years, Atkins has done nothing but lie, repeatedly denying any knowledge of his boyfriend's disappearance in 2007.
Michael, are you in any way connected with the disappearance of Matt Leveson?
No.
Is there anything else that you wish to say about Matt and his disappearance?
No.
Do you know where Matt is now?
No.
The truth is, Atkins knew all along that Matt was dead and buried in a lonely, unmarked grave.
Did he give you details on how long he was here, how long it took?
He described it as taking between half an hour to an hour to dig the grave. He described it as 2 metres long, a metre wide and about 800 millimetres deep. And he dug it with the mattock that he purchased from Bunnings.
He could have ended this nightmare for us nearly 10 years ago.
And he chose not to. He played the gamble. He didn't think we were going to keep going. Wrong, mate. Wrong. Wrong family. You took something so dear, so precious, so priceless that we weren't going to give up. We were going to bring our son home.
Mark and Faye have always believed Michael Atkins murdered their son. And despite being acquitted of the crime, in the court of public opinion, he's always been guilty.
You were with him the night that he disappeared.
But this week, for the first time, the coroner's court has heard Michael Atkins' side of the story. What he says really happened the night Matt died.
What did Michael Atkins say about how...
Detective Chief Inspector Gary Jublin has led the investigation for the last 3 years.
Atkins' account is that he believed that Matt had died of a drug overdose. When he woke up in the morning, he'd slept in the lounge, that Matt was deceased in the bedroom.
With Matt dead in their apartment, Atkins' next move is impossible to comprehend. He did nothing. He didn't call an ambulance, certainly not the police, nor Matt's parents. Instead, he did everything to cover up Matt's death. Why? Well, he claims because he panicked.
He proffered the reason for that was that he was ashamed of the fact that Matt was significantly younger than him and that he was possibly responsible for looking after him, and that he died whilst he was living with him in his care, so to speak, and his family wasn't aware of the lifestyle he was living, and he only recently came out as a homosexual.
So what do you make of his account?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
He had 9.5 years to formulate a best of those events that he can. And I think that's what he's done.
Is it feasible that your son did die of a drug overdose?
Nothing's impossible.
Nothing, but why go to this cover-up?
Michael was 43 and Matt just 19 when they started their relationship in 2006. They would often go to Sydney's Arc nightclub together. And on Sunday, the 23rd of September 2007, this is where they came to party, to drink and take drugs. Just after 2 a.m, CCTV captures first Matt and then Michael leaving the club. In his final text messages to another friend, Matt is unhappy. Upset Michael is making them leave early. 3:30 Sunday morning is the last time anyone hears from Matt.
When did you become aware that Matt was missing?
Not until the Tuesday. Matt's work rang our home on the Tuesday morning because Matt was late.
What do you do? Who do you call and what are you told?
I rang Atkins, left messages for him. He didn't ring back. He finally rang back to say Maddie hasn't come home.
Right from the start, Atkins chose to lie. In the days after he and Matt left the nightclub, Atkins told this story to family and police, that the couple spent the Sunday together at home before Matt inexplicably disappeared.
What happened on Sunday?
We sort of just had, lazy Sunday afternoon, really. I fell asleep on the lounge, watching sort of TV, and woke up a little while later and he wasn't at home. So I sent him a text and said, where are you, whatever.
But Atkins' story started to unravel and Matt's fate became tragically clearer when the young man's abandoned car was discovered by police.
Once we heard that, it was confirming all of our earlier thoughts.
And your worst fears, I'd imagine.
Yes.
He's dead. My son's been murdered. I knew.
That's what you felt at the
I
time.
knew he wasn't coming home.
Is there anything you can say about that?
Don't think so.
Is there anything that comes to mind when we tell you that we've located his car at Waratah Oval?
Not really.
But in the boot of Matt's car, police had found a discarded receipt from Bunnings. It led them to this damning CCTV footage of Atkins buying a Matic and gaffer tape at the very time he claims he was asleep at home.
What is it like for you to see that?
Sickening. Sickening.
The camera doesn't lie, but Atkins did, still denying to police he ever went to Bunnings.
It's our belief that you went to Bunnings Warehouse and you were the person who purchased that pic and the gaffer tape. Is there anything you wish to say about that?
Don't think it was me.
Who do you think it could be?
I don't know.
The police asked us early on, they said, would you be prepared to help out if we need anything done? I said, well, of course. Whatever you need, just ask. We're at your disposal.
Police asked Mark and Faye to meet with Atkins, pretending to offer him sympathy and friendship. Mark was wired up with a listening device to record the conversation.
We went and saw Atkins at his apartment and sat with him. Poor Faye gave the bastard a hug and a kiss. I had to shake his hand.
They did their job so well that for the first time, Atkins admitted he'd bought the Matic, but claimed it was to dig a vegetable garden, a garden that has never existed.
This is a man that you've suspected has something to do with
That's
the
right.
disappearance of your son.
I was physically sick. I had to sit there and look at him and watch him scratch and sweat and lie.
Boy, oh boy, was he nervous.
He was nervous.
Absolutely.
What about you?
I was just trying to think of what to ask that would help the investigation. And we did have him admit for the very first time that he had bought the Matic.
On the 5th of August 2008, police charge Atkins with murder. To almost all, it seems case closed. But without a confession and without a body, the evidence is circumstantial.
What do you believe happened?
After a 6-week trial and 5-day deliberation, the jury acquits Michael Atkins of murder and manslaughter.
When you heard not guilty at the trial, what was that moment
Speechless.
like?
Speechless.
Wow, stunning.
Sickening for him to just walk and not be able to say what really happened, tell us what was just devastating. Absolutely devastating.
Coming up, the agony of searching for their son,
And you just cry and you think, where do you start?
trading justice for the truth,
It was a big gamble,
It's
but
to deal with the devil.
we'd do it again in a heartbeat.
and how Michael Atkins finally came unstuck.
Was that a gotcha moment? Was it, yes, now we might have a breakthrough?
That's next on 60 Minutes.
How did you know where to start?
Well,
wasn't easy. I guess as a starting point, we started from where Matt's car was found.
The marks on the map indicate lost hope. They're the many places Mark and Faye have searched in the last decade, looking for their son's body.
They've searched the length of this road right to the end, looking for places where you can park a car, get out into the bush and hide a body.
No matter how impenetrable or daunting the landscape, the Levesons were determined to find Matt one way or another.
In the early days, and it still is heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, but in the early days you go out there and you cry, you look and you just cry and you think, where do you start? Where do you start? And it's just looking for a needle in a haystack.
We always thought too, our chance of finding Matt ourselves was less than 1 in a million. But lotteries get one, it happens. So that's why it wasn't zero, so of course we kept going.
Even though Michael Atkins had now been cleared of the murder or manslaughter of Matt, the Levesons didn't believe him and were now on a personal crusade. Foremost, they wanted their boy back, but they also hoped finding their son's body would force the case to be reopened.
Where did you search and how did you decide on where to look?
Made ourselves think like a killer.
Well, tried to think like a killer. You can't think like a killer.
We'd go out ourselves at about 2 in the morning, and then if we thought places were suitable, we'd come back for daytime and search properly.
As the Levesons spent years combing through Sydney's national parks, Michael Atkins was living it up in Brisbane.
It was just sickening to think that another human has disposed of another human and didn't have a feeling about it.
Can live such a carefree life.
Like nothing had happened.
But in 2014, 5 years after Atkins walked free, police got a new tip-off, again implicating Atkins. And Detective Chief Inspector Gary Jubilan from the Cold Case Unit reopened the investigation.
Why was the case re-investigated? You have a man who's been charged with murder, he's acquitted, case closed.
Yeah, the reason it was reopened is that we received information that led us to believe there could possibly be some fresh and compelling evidence, and we followed up that line of inquiry throughout 2014.
Was there any?
No, unfortunately it led to nowhere.
During that line of inquiry, during that time, was Michael Atkins always your main suspect?
And we look at all possibilities, but all the evidence led back to one person being involved in the disappearance and having knowledge of the matter, and that was Michael Atkins.
Crushed but not defeated, the Levesons, with the support of Gary Jubilan, pushed for the state coroner to review the case. The chances of an inquest were low, given Atkins had already been tried and acquitted of murder. But incredibly, in December 2015, the Levesons got their way.
Did you guys know that you were such fighters, that you were so dogged?
No, we think what any parent would do. We've now learnt that we won't take no for an answer, and no isn't the response that's satisfactory. So we just keep chasing and chasing.
He was my son, he was my baby, and nobody takes my baby away from me.
I remember a conversation I had with Mark and Faye and their 2 sons about what they hope to achieve with the inquest, and it was they want the person responsible for Matt's death to be prosecuted, and they want to get Matt's body back. I then broke the conversation down and said, if you had a choice of one, what would you go for? And they said, we want Matt's body back. And I certainly understand that.
What happened next at the coronial inquest has never been tried in Australia before. In return for being compelled to testify, Michael Atkins gets to walk free, immune from any prosecution except perjury if it's proven he lied. What makes this unprecedented is that such a deal has never before been offered to the prime suspect in a potential murder case.
Could be said that it was a risk. We're putting someone in the witness box that potentially could make admissions in relation to a murder, and that we couldn't use that information against them. It was a double-edged sword in effect, because we might find out what happened to Matt, but we could never use that evidence against Michael Atkins. So it was a significant decision. It wasn't a decision taken lightly.
And no family has been confronted with such a choice.
The Levesons were asked if they could accept giving up all chance of prosecuting Michael Atkins, no matter what he'd done.
I got in the witness box and said, Your Honour, we understand what this means, but our goal, number one goal, is to bring Matt home and find information. We want to know why Matt was killed. We want to know how he was killed. We want to know where he was killed, where his remains are now.
It was clear only Michael Atkins had those answers. But on the stand, Atkins was a reluctant witness who also proved to be heartless when asked to face the Levesons.
He wouldn't look at us.
He wouldn't look at us, and he said, I think along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, "Oh, I'm sorry, I suppose." And when asked what he was sorry for, he said, "Oh, for their loss."
Well, he didn't just say for their loss, but he said for their loss if he's gone, if Matt is gone.
Well, if.
Well, at that point that he said that, if he's gone, he knew that he was dead. He knew that he'd taken him and dumped him in the Royal National Park.
Of course.
Exactly. For the 9.5 years, he's just been living a lie.
He could have ended this nightmare for us nearly 10 years ago.
I'm sorry.
When he's before the family, he's pretending that Matt may still be alive.
Yes, I remember that well. That was a very, I've seen a lot of courtroom situations and that was a very emotional situation with the family standing before him lying to the family, saying he doesn't know what's happened, yeah.
On the stand during the inquest, I felt that he was locking more and more into the version that he had stuck to for such a long time. And it was quite a simplistic, almost childlike defence that he had, or version that he had of events.
Senior forensic psychologist with New South Wales Police, Dr. Sarah Yule, profiled Atkins. She observed a man so bound by his lies, she warned even immunity may not be enough to get to the truth.
If you think of it as the carrot or the stick approach, I felt very much that there needed to be the carrot and the stick.
The carrot was immunity. The stick was the threat of 10 years in jail if he lied to the inquest. Even then, Atkins continued to maintain he knew nothing about Matt's disappearance.
I didn't do it. And then about the Wednesday, that's when the table started to turn. At that point, then he was starting to be challenged on his answers in terms of, well, you've said this today, but on Monday you've said that.
Are you telling the truth today?
Under the heat of cross-examination, Atkins had little choice but to admit to his contradictions.
So you've lied, the police said, "Oh, I suppose so." And you've lied about this inquest. Well, yeah.
Michael Atkins concedes at the inquest that he has lied. If you can be candid, was that a gotcha moment? Was it, yes, now we might have a breakthrough?
Well, if I could be candid, it excited me. I'm sitting in there and I saw that and I saw, OK, here's an opportunity.
The opportunity was to scare Atkins into action. Atkins was now offered a second deal, but this time he had to deliver or he would go to jail. So what was the bargain?
Basically, to give Michael Atkins indemnity from prosecution for the perjury. And
in return for what?
In return for him telling us exactly what's happened.
So this was the deal. We've caught you lying. You tell us where Matt's body is and we won't prosecute you for perjury.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're going to jail for what, 10 years?
Potentially, yes, that's right. And the deal was, very important, the deal was not on effort, it was on result. So well and good saying, oh, I think he's here with this spot, I think he is. If there's no body recovered or no remains recovered, no deal. It was a gamble. It was a big gamble. And Faye often says it's a deal with the devil. But we do it again in a heartbeat.
So it's a deal with the devil because, well, it's given you the ultimate gift, what you wanted most in the world, your son back. It's also denied you justice.
Yep, but I'd have Maddie back over justice any day.
Coming up, Michael Atkins reveals his terrible secret.
He found the location to bury Matt's body. He then dug a grave.
And the ultimate twist that could change everything. He might be cold and callous, but does that necessarily make him a murderer? Next on 60 Minutes.
It was about, I guess, narrowing down every area that we could think of to try and find that one spot or limit the areas that it possibly could be.
Detective Senior Constable Scott Craddock has driven this isolated road too many times, sent on a search odyssey by the confessions of Michael Atkins. And did you feel that he was forthcoming, that he was trying to pinpoint?
Yeah, on the night he was quite animated, and it's hard. This road changes at night as well. It's quite different from day to night.
In the wee hours of the morning last November, Michael Atkins retraced this dreadful drive for police, using his own mud map to try to remember exactly where in this bushland he buried his young boyfriend, Matt Leveson. So what did Michael Atkins tell you about how he brought Matt down, where Matt was?
He placed Matt in the boot, and if you can see in the boot, there was in fact a stereo system in the back of the car, and he removed that so he had enough room to put Matt's body in the boot. He had wrapped Matt in a blanket or a sheet.
It was a dark and tragic secret Atkins had kept for a decade. It was only when threatened with jail for lying to the coroner's court that he finally admitted he disposed of the young man's body. So Gary, this is actually Matt's car?
Yes, that's correct.
Detective Chief Inspector Gary Jubilan had Atkins relive the night many times, even getting Atkins to drive Matt's car, as he did on the night he dumped him. To have this man at that time, a potential murderer, retracing his steps in such a ghoulish kind of way, what was that like?
It was ghoulish. It's probably a good way of describing it, because it's a tragic set of events that have occurred, and here we are trying to recreate it and get him back into the mindset so he could accurately recreate it.
Police even used hypnosis and, on the advice of forensic psychologist Dr. Sarah Yule, a mannequin to replicate Matt's body to help trigger Atkins' memory.
We had discussions about keeping the atmosphere reasonably relaxed and non-intimidating, and also about the importance of making it as close to the reality of that event as it could be. Not only, was it daylight, was it night time, the visual sensations, but also the physical sensations and having to move a body, that can assist in achieving additional information.
How traditional, well accepted were your methods in this investigation?
There was nothing traditional about this case. To me, it looked like it was a person who was trying to help us locate the body. He appeared to be genuine in that regards. So we created an environment in which he felt comfortable and relaxed to try and recall what had happened.
In November last year, Atkins said this was the spot where he buried Matt's body, which launched an extensive police search that came up with nothing. For Mark and Faye, it was just further torment. So did you think at that point that Michael Atkins might be going to jail for perjury, or did you expect him to come up with another search site?
Yes, I was hoping that at that stage that he, it looked like he might go to jail and would like be killed in jail.
That's what you want?
Why not?
Is that what you want?
Yes.
You want him dead?
Yes. Slowly, painfully. Not in my hand, but it comes as a job, yes.
As another search was launched at another site, police tried to find an even greater truth. How did Matt die? Atkins tells police he thinks it could have been an accidental drug overdose, and for the first time admits to what he did next.
He provided a version of events that he was at the Arc nightclub with Matt. There was a bit of arguing on the way home. Matt didn't want to go home, and then when they've got home, they still weren't talking. And Atkins' account is that when he woke up in the morning, he'd slept in the lounge, that Matt was deceased in the bedroom. He then provided us an account of what took place that day. He went to a Bunnings hardware store and purchased a mattock and duct tape with the express purpose of using that equipment to dispose of Matt's body. He then stayed in the apartment the rest of the afternoon into the evening until it got quite late at night. He then used Matt's car. He found a location that he thought it was suitable to bury Matt's body. He then dug a grave and put Matt's body in the grave.
Before he buried Matt, as he waited for dark, it's believed Atkins was online, already looking for new sexual partners. What does that tell you about this person?
It confirms all that we think. This is an individual that we consider as a psychopath, has no guilt, no remorse, no emotions. He'll use emotions to get his own way, but fake emotions. But he's controlling, domineering, and that's the way he is.
Knowing he would go to jail if he didn't deliver Matt's body, Atkins was adamant the grave was in the first place he'd selected. Even though it had been searched once before, Gary Jubilan agreed to try again. This time, Mitch Loam was behind the controls. How did you feel about doing the job?
Oh, well, the boss just said to me, parents need closure, so whatever you do, find him.
Did you believe that you could?
Well, we were hoping we could. As long as he was here, we were going to find him.
Having spent many off-duty hours here already, Detective Senior Constable Scott Craddock was now overseeing this last effort. It was the final hour in the final day of searching, and Scott made the fateful decision to get Mitch to knock over a small palm.
On that occasion, I looked down and I got a closer look, and I looked back at Mitch and I sort of just said, I think we found him.
It was a look about Scott on this particular point in time where I thought, this is serious. And then he took me to the site, and what I could see, what was obvious to me, that it was human remains, and I'm getting a chill just talking about it, and I certainly got a chill at the time, and I sort of looked at Scott and he looked at me and we said, well, we better go tell them.
The walk over to them felt like a lifetime. To say, I think we found Matt, and to see their reaction, yeah, it was hard to, in that moment, to know what to do, to see the emotion on Faye, and you're telling them something that they longed for, but that longing is something that's a horrible end as well.
So full of grief.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They found your boy.
And Scott and Mitch are my heroes. The most humble people. But they found Maddie for me.
The tenacity of the police during this part of the case, how would you describe that?
Amazing. You could not get a more dedicated, professional team that we have at the moment. They are just amazing.
And they wouldn't take no for an answer either.
They're like you guys.
Yeah, they said that we spurred them on, they spurred us on, so it was mutual.
It seems inconceivable that having led police to Matt's body, Atkins can now simply walk away. His deals mean he can't be prosecuted. The coroner is yet to give her findings on the manner and cause of Matt's death. But in an incredible twist, police say it's not just the deals that protect Michael Atkins. Their new opinion is that his account, that he did not murder Matt, cannot be dismissed.
His account of it was that he believed that Matt had died of a drug overdose.
Having cross-examined him, do you believe his account?
We present the evidence to the coroner, and that it's more appropriate that the coroner talks about whether he was truthful. What I can say is that on the information he provided is consistent with the facts that we know, and it also led to the recovery of Matt's body.
If the truth is that Matthew Leveson died of an accidental drug overdose, that makes Michael Atkins many things, but it does not make him a murderer. It's a truth Mark and Faye will never accept. You might be cold and callous, completely heartless, unable to grieve for your son, but does that necessarily make him a murderer?
No, it doesn't, but the circumstances do.
The circumstances don't prove that he's an idiot who made the wrong decision?
We don't think so.
Why would we accept somebody who's lied for 9.5 years that all of a sudden he's going to tell the truth?
Perhaps one of the reasons is because the police you trust and seem to admire so much seem to believe it.
That doesn't mean it's right. Police tend to have blinkers on. They get set in their ways and it's a nice neat package, isn't it?
As a lawman, How difficult is it to see the man who caused all that pain and did nothing to solve this terrible mystery walk away?
I think punishment comes in a lot of ways. And yeah, let's break it down. This was the person that he claimed he loved. He just dumped in the bush in an unmarked grave and let his family go through this suffering. So he can deal with that.
The family believes that he did more. The family believes that he's responsible for the death of Matt. Is there any way that he's lied again, that somehow he's convinced you that his lie is the truth?
Yeah, look, it's a matter for the coroner to determine on whether the truthfulness of his account, but I'm not naive. We interviewed this person and we interviewed him with the view of catching him out with inconsistencies, and the information that he has provided isn't contradicted by any facts that we have available.
But Chief Inspector Jubilant also says there is no evidence to corroborate Atkins' version and says it's up to the coroner to make the final judgment.
Strange, digging a hole again.
Mark and Faye now tend to the palm tree that marked the grave of their son.
He's looked after it for 9 years and 8 months and 8 days.
Salvaged from the national park and now growing in their backyard.
No, now we've got to keep it alive.
It's their mission to nurture it, just like they do when it comes to all memories of Matt. The Leveson legacy may be of unimaginable loss, but it's also one of great strength, born out of immeasurable love. Whatever Michael Atkins' involvement in your son's death, his certain disposal of your son's body, how do you cope knowing he will never face charges on that now?
Most days I have thoughts, evil thoughts towards him. I'm not going to act on those, but I still enjoy my evil thoughts towards him. It's how I cope.
I mean, yeah, you do think, oh, hope this happens to him, hope that happens to him. But as a fantasy, and we're not going to come to his level.
No.
We're not like him. We've got hearts. We care about people. Don't care about him. We've got our son back. We know at whose hand, but we've got our son back, and that's all that matters.
The truth is a broken heart still beats.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.